Governing Board Meeting of the Lammersville Unified School District is called to order at 7 p.m. We'd ask that everyone please silence their cell phones as this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. At this time, we'd like to ask the Principal McDonald of Cordes Elementary School and his students Mocha and Laura to come lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Three, two, one. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, and thank you for welcoming us and inviting us here this evening. I have two wonderful students that are here to give a quick snippet of the great things going on at Cordes Elementary. We have Moksha and Laura.
Hello everyone, my name is Moksha Arun Mohan. I'm the ASB president of Cordes Elementary, and this is
Laura Mistricki, and as you know, I'm the vice president of Cordes Elementary. So, Cordes Elementary positive behavior expectations. So every morning, along with our Pledge of Allegiance, we have our own school pledge that we recite every day. It's called the Paul Pledge, that we say every morning to teach kids how to remind kids how to act responsibly, work and play safely, and show respect. And along with this, we always try to recognize kindness around our school, and we hand out paw tickets to students who deserve them and have shown their character around the school. And every other week, we choose 10 of these tickets in a box randomly, and these students are able to spin the wheel and pick their prize to reward their kindness.
So something that we are starting this trimester is something that leadership and ASB have both been working on, and it's a charity trimester project. So ASB and leadership, we strive to make a difference in our community and help those in need in those hard times. So this trimester, we're working on collaborating with organizations near us to help those we can during the hard times. So basically, our teacher has made us make groups in our elective, and we are each coming up with our own project that would benefit our community.
So this month we have our Winter Wonderland. ASB is hosting Winter Wonderland for grades 6 through 8 in Cordes, where they can sing and dance with their friends and have fun in the MPR under supervision. The multi-purpose room will be decorated with twinkling lights, snowflake decorations, and some fake snow. We will include refreshments and snacks and other activities to make the night even more memorable. It's a great opportunity for students to socialize, have fun, and celebrate the winter season together in a school setting. Our dances are usually enjoyed by many, and the money we raise for this dance will go towards future events. So far, we've raised $140, but that's only in 2 days, so hopefully we'll get more.
So something that we've been doing as ASB over the years is grams. So throughout the school year, ASB sells grams for different events such as Valentine's Day, Halloween, for spring and winter. And these are the times where students, they can buy grams and they can write messages to their friends and then and send letters to each other during a special season. It's a fun way to spread positivity and make someone's day brighter. People usually write heartfelt letters or notes to send to their friends or classmates. For example, the last time we sold these grams and were for winter, and we made sales that would go to our future events like our Winter Wonderland, and yeah.
So Cordes ASB hosted our very first winter festival for students from grades K through 5. We had 5 stations: face paint, letters to Santa, making ornaments, creating bracelets, and a snowball game inside the multi-purpose room, which is like dodgeball with cotton balls. This event was overall a great success, and we had long lines at every station, ASB was able to raise over $500 during this event, and this money will fund for future events.
So this year, we wanted to emphasize on building a school culture for our school. And so ASB and leadership worked together to demonstrate school spirit by supporting the Cordes teams in sports, competitions, and events. Along with this, we also make events such as the Winter Wonderland and Spring Grams to make some form of interest for students to come to school. So small things like wearing school colors on Fridays brings us together as a school. ASB and leadership also come up with creative spirit weeks for weeks such as the Red Ribbon Week. We've also made a school pledge that we recite every morning as a school, as we said, the PAW pledge. We also have Monday morning rallies outside where students are word for weekly characteristics during warmer days on Mondays. ASB works on events that create a school connection between the staff, students, and families. We worked on events such as the fun run, the homecoming float. We've also sold grams. We're currently working on dances and social events such as the Winter Festival and the Winter Wonderland. Thank you for your time.
And feel free to always come and watch us do our work in Cordes Elementary.
Because every day at Cordes is
Always a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Item number 2, roll call.
Lisa Boulay,
Here.
Colin Clements,
Here.
Anita Daniel,
Absent.
Stephanie Olson,
Here.
David Pombo,
Here.
Devika Vitolani.
here.
Item 3, approval and/or corrections to the agenda.
There are none. Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
On a motion by trustee Clements and seconded by trustee Boulay, student preferential vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Item 4, California Voting Rights Act presentation and public hearing to gather input regarding potential composition of trustee area boundaries. Staff report?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Harold Freeman of Lozano Smith, one of our attorneys, and Mr. Doug Johnson from National Demographic Corporation. We'll have Mr. Freeman speak first.
Good evening. It's nice to be here in person with you for a change, and healthy, which I'm really excited about. Just to give you a brief overview, and then I'm going to get to introducing you to Doug Johnson, a demographer who's going to be working with the district to really take you through some of the details. But for you, as a reminder, and for members of the public who may not be aware, this last fall in October, the board adopted a resolution that committed the district to moving forward towards by-trustee area elections. And Doug will be explaining a lot more about what that means. But essentially a different way of electing your board in compliance with the California Voting Rights Act. The board had a number of public hearings. It retained a demographer at that time. The demographer prepared a number of maps that went out for consideration by the public. But by the late time of the year, there were a few public comments essentially to the effect of a desire to have more opportunity for public input and community outreach. There was also a letter from an attorney that raised various issues with the process. And for all of those reasons and more, in December, the board adopted a resolution to unravel its prior resolution that had its commitment to move forward to by-trustee area elections, and then immediately adopted a new resolution to move forward to by-trustee area elections, essentially restarting the process. So really tonight we are here for that restart. The first thing that you do as you go through a series of required public hearings under the California Voting Rights Act is you have a public hearing. This is a pre-map hearing to basically get input from the community for your demographer to hear from you about ideas of how trustee area elections might work in the district. So that's what brings us here tonight for the first one of these hearings. And I want to introduce you to Doug Johnson, the demographer with NDC. This is a new demographer for the district. He is, as we are doing as a theme, starting from scratch. So Doug has not been working from the work of the prior demographer. He is going to be starting everything anew, if you will. Doug is certainly one of the most experienced people in the state, maybe even in the country on this topic. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you a little bit more, and then he'll take you through some more of the details of the California Voting Rights Act, and where we'll be proceeding from here. So Doug.
Thank you, Harold, and thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually have been, as you mentioned, working in this for 22 years straight now, and back when Modesto first went to council district elections around 2006, I would fly into Oakland and drive back and forth through here every meeting. So it's a pleasure to actually stop here and not have to drive all the way out there as well. But having watched this area grow so fast over the last 20 years, it's a pleasure to actually be doing some work. You may be familiar with us too. We just drew the trustee areas for Tracy Unified next door, and we're actually doing some student enrollment projections and analysis for them right now. So altogether, we actually just did a running total. Since I came to NDC in 2001, we have done almost 600 districting and redistricting projects for 475 jurisdictions. So we've been at this a lot. And I love the work because every jurisdiction is different. And every neighborhood and community makes its own different decisions and choices. And I actually had the pleasure, I got here early, had dinner at Mountain Mike's Pizza, and sat next to the table where your Little League board was planning the upcoming season. I was like, that's the small town feel that I love. Now I prefer AYSO to Little League, but that's, but it was good to see a thriving community and active people like that. So happy to walk through this and introduce you to this process, or reintroduce you to this process, and then answer any questions you may have, of course. So at a very basic level, what we're talking about is simply how the board is elected. You know, technically, what we're about to go through should only matter once every 2 years on election day. And hopefully after the change, the board will continue to care about the whole school district and every student in it, and it's just on election day where these trustee areas matter. That's one of the big challenges after making this transition, is to keep the board mentality and the district approach to be for every kid in every school, not focused on your individual trustee area. But what we are looking at is shifting from your current at-large system to districts, which in schools are called trustee areas, where only that trustee area's residents can run for that seat, and only the residents in that trustee area can vote for who represents their seat. So essentially, instead of voting for all 5 board members and everyone in the whole school district votes for all 5, people will now vote for 1 board member, but their vote will carry a lot more weight in who that 1 board member is. One thing I always emphasize to folks is, in a lot of areas, including here probably, their main experience with districts is the county supervisors. And in most counties, each supervisor kind of runs their district as kind of the guru or the ombudsman or boss of that district. That doesn't happen in cities and schools. It still takes 3 votes. So there won't be any school decisions made by the individual board member. It'll still be everything comes back to the whole board, and decisions are made by the whole board. So people shouldn't take their county experiences and bring them to schools, because it's a very different set of powers and approach. And you are, as I'm sure you've heard many times now, part of a wave. This is the California Voting Rights Act really triggered this wave 22 years ago, and it has just been sweeping the state ever since. I actually co-wrote a paper calling it a quiet tsunami sweeping through the state government, so I'll talk a little bit about the numbers in a moment. At a very kind of technical legal level, everyone's familiar with the Federal Voting Rights Act. It's been around since 1965. Those of us that work in this field have a pretty good handle and pretty good understanding of what the rules are and how to look at if a jurisdiction's in violation or not. That has 4 rules, and you have to fail all 4 before a judge would order you into trustee area or district elections. So locally, you may be familiar, in the 90s, there were a couple of federal cases, one prominent one in Stockton, where there was a lawsuit and the jurisdiction won. And California, in its wisdom, decided it was too hard to bring a federal case, and so they wrote the California law to make it much easier for a potential plaintiff to push for this change. And so they took the 4 rules and they removed 2 of them. And so the federal law, you have to be able to draw a majority district where the protected class in question would be a majority of the voters. That rule is gone. That doesn't apply under California law. So much smaller protected class populations can now bring challenges. The 4th one under the federal law is that you have to show the totality of circumstances, kind of all the factors in play show that race is either an overt or a covert factor in elections. In the Old South, it used to be a lot of things like if you're running against if a white candidate's running against another white candidate, you never mention your opponent. But if a white candidate's running against a black candidate, they would put that opponent's picture everywhere. It may not be overtly racist, but that was covertly racist, saying don't vote for one of them. So that's the kind of stuff the federal law looks at and considers. California law struck that out. So there's no need to actually tie voting behavior to actual racism or racial preferences. What's left is now purely a statistical study. So we're not, when a jurisdiction's found guilty of a California Voting Rights Act challenge, often there's no allegation of actual racial animus, prejudice, or discrimination. It's just that the voting patterns seem to match up with race. It could be for a variety of reasons, as long as there's some kind of correlation, not causation. So it did boil it down to simply statistics now. And now there's a new twist about both the statistical study and a related statistical study showing dilution of a voting strength. Complicated issue, we won't go down that road, but that's what's going on, and you may have heard of the Santa Monica lawsuit. That's a case that's been up to the state Supreme Court. It's back down the appeals court, probably going back up to the state Supreme Court, and I'm happy to talk about that for hours, but I'll spare you that. So I talked about the tsunami. By our count, there are at least 240 school districts that have made this change since 2002. So a lot of activity going on. 34 community college districts have changed from at-large to trustee area elections. We're now over 160 cities. One county board of supervisors because the other 58 were already by district. So San Mateo was the last holdout. They were sued under this law and they settled and went to district elections. So now all 58 are by district. And now we're seeing a lot of activity in special districts. Water districts, hospital districts, fire protection districts, airport districts. They're all getting legal challenges. And what's happening is not that 400 of these or 500 California jurisdictions have been discriminating and prejudicial. It's that they fail that statistical test, or they're alleged to fail that statistical test. And when they do fight, you can see some of the settlements. On the right-hand side. Palmdale was a big case. They ended up spending $4.7 million in their settlement. Modesto, they only fought over where the case was constitutional, just the constitutional question. They ended up paying the plaintiffs $3 million, plus another almost $2 million to their own team. So you can see these huge dollar figures, and that's why you're getting hundreds of jurisdictions making this switch. So that's a little bit of background. I'm happy to come back and talk about that in more detail if there are questions. But jumping into your process and your timeline, there are a 5-hearing process. We are looking at tonight's the first of the pre-draft map hearings, so I won't have any draft maps for you tonight. Tonight and on the 29th, there are these initial hearings to just kind of inform the public, talk about this issue in general, and try to identify neighborhoods and communities of interest that we want to consider when drafting the maps. Those maps will be released by very quickly after the 29th, 7 days prior to February 7th, when it is our first hearing on the draft maps themselves. So that'll be the first time when there's actual maps to look at and discuss. But it's not the final time. Then there'll be a community forum, an informal discussion where I'll talk with anyone who's interested and wants to come out and talk about the draft maps. And we'll bring that input back to you on the 21st for another hearing. And then on March 6th is the scheduled hearing for map adoption. That's done by ordinance in cities, by resolution in schools, of course. And then for schools, there's one more step. We have to go to the county committee and get county committee on school district organization approval, but that's usually kind of a formality. So an extensive process. This is all dictated. The number of hearings is dictated by state law, and then the community forum is the district's desire to encourage more public participation in this process. This slide is new. These criteria and rules just changed. January 1st, the state rewrote the criteria for drawing lines. So we've got 2 sets now. Federal requirements, equal population, essentially an equal number of people in each trustee area. And it is people. It's not registered voters or eligible voters. It's human beings that counted by the census. And federal law also requires that the lines follow the Federal Voting Rights Act. Harold and I will make sure that all the maps that come to you do that, or that if not, they'll have a big stamp on them saying, you can look at this but not adopt it, because it doesn't comply with that. And at the same time, no racial gerrymandering. So the feds say there's kind of a floor and a ceiling for looking at race. You can consider race, but it can't be what the law calls a predominant factor. So you can't pick this map because it's 29% over that map because it's 28%. You need to pick based on the other criteria, and race cannot be the predominant factor. It can just be one of the factors. So those are the federal laws. Everyone follows those and has for 30 years now. California's criteria in the middle here are in priority order. And so first, contiguous. Pretty straightforward. The pieces of a trustee area need to touch each other. The second and the big one is we have to the maximum degree possible, avoid dividing any neighborhoods or communities of interest. And communities of interest is a very broad term. Essentially any socioeconomic or policy concern that links the residents of a geographic area together can be a community of interest, and we want to try to keep them together. A big goal tonight and at the 29th is to identify what communities of interest you might have, and I'll show you some potential maps of that. Then easily identifiable boundaries, try to follow major roads, rivers, freeways, things like that, just so it's easy for the voters to know where their trustee area is. When election day comes and they want to go knocking on doors for a candidate, it's a lot easier if it's from Main Street to the freeway than if they have to go up this street and around that street and that kind of thing. So to the degree possible, again, this is the third in a ranked list of state criteria, that's the requirement. And then compact. And California, thankfully, has a pretty logical approach to that. There's a lot of mathematical formulas that I deal with. California kind of threw those all out and said, just don't go around one group of people to get to another group of people, unless you're doing it to achieve a higher priority. So again, that's the last on a prioritized list. The big change in the new law is the prohibition on the far right. Now it says, you shall not adopt district boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, a political candidate, or a political party. So we can't draw lines that are drawn to advantage or disadvantage any incumbent or anyone who you know to be a potential candidate. It sounds straightforward. It can get tricky. As Harold and I talk about, a lot of these maps are going to end up in court. Just be over that issue of is it favoring or discriminating. But we'll do our best to avoid that. And then other traditional districting principles, if two maps are identical on all those considerations, then you can look at possibly underpopulating a little bit trustee areas that you know will grow quickly. You know, obviously, pretty clear in this area what area is going to grow quickly, right? So the area that includes, the trustee area that includes the area to the north of here could be underpopulated by a couple of %, but because of that federal equal population requirement, we can't do it anywhere near enough to actually accommodate that growth. The seat that includes the areas that are under construction now and about to grow are going to get overpopulated quickly. It's not a problem. We'll fix it in 2031. But you can accommodate that a little bit if you have two maps that are equal on everything else. So a lot of rules and goals to follow. If anyone wants to suggest maps, residents want to submit maps, they need to keep all these in consideration. Otherwise, Harold and I will be guiding you through this and weighing in on which maps comply with these rules and which might be problematic. So your demographics. You are an interesting jurisdiction to look at demographically because you're growing so fast and because our data is late, really. So we've got our 2020 census count, 26,000, just over 26,100. Of course, that's a 2020 number. I can only imagine what your number is now, but that is the number that we use by state law. So we are looking at having 5,237 people, plus or minus some, in each trustee area. Now then we look at demographics, and you can see the total population numbers there. You get an interesting demographic thing here. Of total population, you can see 14% Latino, 21% white, 55% Asian or Pacific Islander. Then if you go to citizen voting age population, the next category, that we look at a lot because that's your eligible voting population. And the courts use that as the best measure of your eligible voters. And there's a huge drop, right? 55% Asian Pacific Islander down to 30%. Most of that drop is because of different databases. So the citizen voting age population comes out from something called the American Community Survey that the Census Bureau does every year, but it's compiled over 5 years. So the data here is the most recent. It came out in March, and it was compiled from 2017 to 2021. And so it's roughly 2019. And you're growing so fast, and especially we're growing so fast in 2019, 2020, that's why the 30% number is lagging behind the 55. We already have some preliminary next year's data, and the Asian Pacific number actually jumps by 1,000 citizens of voting age of Asian Pacific. So that number is probably closer to 45, 50%. There's not a huge lack of citizenship among your Asian American population, as you would think from looking at these numbers. It's really just the age of the data. So, and we'll know, unfortunately, we'll get the new, more accurate citizen voting age population data in March or April, just after we finish this process. So we'll be able to tell you what the numbers were after you adopt them. But just keep that in mind as you look at our reports. The citizen voting age population numbers for Asians are significantly lower than the real numbers. Then we get into voters registration data. I'm not going to go through all this data, but on the right-hand side is a whole bunch of data that residents can use to look at communities of interest. Sometimes we look at what language is spoken at home. Sometimes we look at where renters are, where are multifamily housing units. All that data is available, and on this interactive site I'm going to show you, people can see maps of it. So if someone thinks there should be a trustee area that's heavily renters, they'll be able to look at the map and see where are there more renters than in other parts of the district. So lots of data, and for every map we'll give you all of these data for every trustee area. So anyone interested in a specific category can look at each map for that. This is an example of a map that they can see on the website and that we'll be presenting. Asian American citizen voting age population, this is, as I mentioned, that lag data. But you can see the concentration of population here in Mountain House, much more dense population than in the Tracy and the Alameda County portions of the district. So the reds, yellows, and greens are majority Asian American already, even by the old data. And then purple and blues are 0 to 50% Asian American citizen voting age population. So you can really see the southern end of Mountain House much more heavily Asian American than the significantly Asian American northern part of Mountain House, and much higher than the purple area in the rural area. Every so often we do get a red one, a big red area out in the rural area. You can see that in Alameda County. That area has I think it's a 4 on it. The 4 means there's 4 people there. So 75% or higher Asian American, but where that goes is not going to drive the demographics of an entire trustee area because there's only 4 people. What really drives it is the city blocks with 100 people or with 50 people. We're not really, it's not going to impact our maps much where those 4 people go. Latinos, kind of the reverse. The San Joaquin County rural areas, much higher percentages of Latinos, percentage of citizen voting age population. Again, you're getting yellows and reds in areas that are relatively lower population. They're not 4s like that red one was, but not a huge percentage. This is why we're getting about 14% district-wide Latino population. That's something we do want to keep in mind as we're drawing the trustee areas. And then these are examples of the other demographics. So you can see, for example, college graduates in the far left map. This data is not block by block like the earlier data is. It just doesn't come from the Bureau in that format or in a way we can get into that format. And so you're seeing all the Alameda County stuff is going to be one chunk in the north of the freeway and one chunk south of the freeway. And there's not going to be a lot of variation. But a little bit higher percentage in the Alameda County rural area than in the San Joaquin County rural area. But online, you'll be able to zoom in and see the Mountain House details. I was just showing these as examples. But you can get it, and in Mountain House, you're getting different percentages, north and south, too. I was going to ask, was the south part of Mountain House built first, and then the north part built later, or is it all, what's been built so far all kind of built at the same time?
it's been done by a village concept. There are 12 villages, 10 of which produce a K-8 school. And the original Mountain House village is central. And then it kind of went central, north, north central, and then it's gone from there.
Okay. So that north-south kind of difference in Asian American percentage is probably real. I was wondering if they built in the south and then worked their way up, the north may just be more lagging data. But it's probably, if they start in the center and kind of built out, then it's probably, those are somewhat of a notable difference in north and south. But you can see the renter percentages here. Percent for schools, we often look at percentage of households with a child under age 18. Mainly, we use that map to identify active senior living areas, which can be a significant factor for schools if they're really large. But none of that really jumps out here in the data. But these are all available. Anyone who wants to look at them can look at them on the website I'm going to show you when we get it up and running. So in terms of the criteria, I'm going back to neighborhoods and communities of interest. First, neighborhoods, this is really just what part of town do you live in? Whatever answer someone gives is the answer. I'll show in a moment, I have those neighborhood maps. And I suspect most people probably identify with those areas in Mountain House, but they may not. So this is one of the questions of this hearing and the next hearing, is to get people's feedback in. The maps I'll show, do they accurately reflect their neighborhood, or do they have a different view of what's their neighborhood? And really we're looking for, where do you live, and in particular, what is its boundaries? And it's okay for people to disagree. If one person says it's this little area and another person says, no, it's that area plus the area around it, well, then we'll try to keep the area around it all together. And if we can't, because of other reasons in other neighborhoods, then we'll focus on the core. This isn't something that there's a wrong and right answer. We're just looking for all the answers and information we can get. Then the law rewrote the definition of community of interest as of January 1st. And so this language is right out of state law. The key part is a part in blue. Community of interest is a population that shares a common social or economic interest that should be kept together in a single district, or in this case, trustee area, for purpose of its effective and fair representation. This is an interesting twist. So people can think about what's your neighborhood, what's your community, but the question is, do you want your community kept together in one seat because that's better for you? Or is it actually better to divide it and have multiple board members from that community, in which case it doesn't count as a legal community of interest? The way this plays out is if there's an area, and I don't know how applicable these are to Mountain House and Lammersville, but if there's an area that historically has been unrepresented, South Modesto, when we were working in Modesto, that had never had a council member, lower income, foreign language, whatever the issue be, then it would benefit from being kept together, because that concentrates its voting strength and lets the residents be more likely to elect the person they want. If you have a high turnout area, or an area that has historically not had problems getting heard by the elected body, whatever that body might be, and again, I go back to active senior areas, they often want to be divided. I had one lady tell me, we turn out at 99%. The elected officials will listen to us, and we want two that listen to us, rather than just one. And it's dividing your ability to choose who represents your trustee area, but it's not impacting your ability to have fair and effective representation. So the first question is, what's your community? The second is, does it benefit from being kept together in one seat? No right or wrong answer there. This is all getting public input. Then what the state, and that's been around for a couple of years, that definition. What the state added is they kind of expanded the definition, as you see below it. A community could just be a shared public policy concern. And then they kind of threw the kitchen sink into the list in the law. Shared interest in education, public safety, public health, environment, so on. The challenge here is that a community and a neighborhood needs to be geographically defined in order to be relevant to drawing trustee areas. So it's not just, I suppose, everyone's interested in education and public safety. Is there a geographic area that has a particular interest in education and public safety? And I live down in Glendale in Southern California. We have one road where everyone races their cars and flips and crashes. So the people along that road have a specific interest in public safety that makes them a community of interest. So that it's not just that you're interested in education. It's what is specific to your geographic area about education. It might be rural areas interested in transportation, because it's a lot harder to, if you have a giant school district and you have to bus 40 miles to school, they have a particular geographic interest in education. But that's what the law is intending to go for. And then it could be shared socioeconomic characteristics, similar voter registration, participation rates, and then shared histories. So this could be a legacy. You're such a new community, you're not going to have this. But if, say, you're in Los Angeles, there's a lot of history of redlining and exclusion and things like that. That all plays into the definition of communities of interest. What it may not be used to define, though, at the bottom there, is you can't say, our neighborhood really likes so-and-so and we want them elected, so we're a community of interest. Can't be defined by a party incumbent or a candidate. So these are not necessarily neighborhoods or communities of interest, but I put together some maps to get people thinking about it and to react to them. And actually, one of the things we love is if you say, no, that's not a good representation of community of interest, because then we can narrow it down some. But a couple of options, and you probably know these offhand, but I threw them out there. The freeways, obviously, in the bottom left, could be, if they act as a significant neighborhood or community boundary, especially in the rural areas, that could be something that defines a community of interest or a neighborhood. The Alameda versus San Joaquin counties sections. Do the residents who were in the city of Tracy identify themselves as a community of interest, or is that just more rural territory? And then, of course, up top we've got our attendance zones. In the top right, there's school zones. And you've got, obviously, established and then coming school attendance zones. So those may be one of the interesting questions I have as I look at these maps is the future school zones. Would they be better off in one seat with one board member who really focuses on that? Or would they be better off in multiple seats? Because obviously that's an issue that's going to impact everybody as other schools start feeding into there. And then we've got your planned areas. We got from, I forget for the website or if you sent over, 2 different maps that I think are the same map. Planned areas and school zones, I think, are closely related, just 2 versions of the same map. So these are things we're looking for in this hearing to hear from residents. Are these good definitions of neighborhoods and communities? For example, are there 2 planned areas or school zones that really are one neighborhood? That's a very easy way to identify a neighborhood by grouping them together. But there's no need to try to get your neighborhood or community big. Small is actually easier to work with because it's easier for us to keep together. And then just wrapping up here, as I mentioned, there is this website. It's not actually Google Maps, but it works a lot like Google Maps. You've got in the top left plus and minus to zoom in and out. You've got in the top center an address box where you can type in and zoom in. And then you see on the right-hand side the click boxes, so people can go through and they can show the attendance zones. Can show the school district boundary, obviously. We've got the school locations in there, which was tricky, as you know. I had to actually go into the satellite view and move the dots because the addresses in such a new development often come up in the wrong spot. So those dots have all been moved onto the school site using the satellite imagery. And then you can see grayed out, and it's hard to read on this screen, but if you're on the website, it's really easy. All those demographic characteristics I mentioned. As you zoom in, those will become options, and people can click and check where. So you can zoom in on a specific neighborhood and see where does the census find renters? Where do you find folks that speak another language at home? All that data is all available on this site, and people can zoom in and out or enter their address and zoom in on their neighborhood. So we'll get that up. We'll get that link over to you so it can go on the district site. So that wraps up my talk. And the next part is really for the residents in the hearing. Obviously, I'm happy to answer any questions you have before that or after that. But we're happy to hear from the residents. What is their thoughts on this? Do they have any questions? And then statutorily, we really want to get feedback on neighborhoods and communities of interest that will then go into the drawing of the draft maps. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have now or after.
Madam President,
Yes, Trustee Pombo.
I have a question and a comment / question, I guess. The first question, I think you answered it, but I just wanted to clarify. There will be a link from the district website for the public to get all this information that's been presented tonight.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I feel, and I think at least some of the board, if not all the board, share my feeling in this, that I think it's important that we don't follow the attendance area boundaries for our areas. I'm very afraid of someday, and I don't have that fear with our current board, but someday having the Wickland board member and the Cuesta board member, and what's good for my school isn't good for your school. And I think we should avoid that however possible and have board members representing as many school areas or district areas as possible because, well, I've been on the board 13 years and I've always felt like I represent everybody in the district. And I like to represent everybody in the district. I like that anybody out there, if they have an issue, can call me and say, hey, I don't like this or I don't like that or so on. And I fear that if we give any credence to attendance boundaries, that's going to get lost at some point, and it'll be us against them mentality with future boards, and that scares me, frankly.
Yeah. That is a thought that comes up a lot and we hear all the time. And we draw lines for Fresno Unified. And Fresno Unified doesn't have areas 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They actually named them after the high schools. And it's the extreme of what you're talking about. And man, in redistricting after the census, it's chaos because we say, well, we're moving the boundary of, high school X trustee area. And so 500 parents think we're moving where their kids are going to go to school. It's the extreme example of what you're talking about and a bad idea. And so, yes, no, that is excellent feedback.
So, in the interest of efficiency, I would just like to ask my fellow board members, Trustee Palmo said he thought a lot of us felt that way. I know I feel that way. Did he speak accurately for how you feel about the attendance boundary issue?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would echo it, but clarify and say, obviously, we have legal requirements that go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So step 5 would be, to do the best that we can while achieving all of our requirements. Step 5 would be, once we've done that, to try to avoid a situation where we have, I'm the Wickland representative, I'm the Cuesta representative, et cetera.
Well, I think part of that is naturally going to happen anyway because there's 5 trustee areas, but we have more than 5 schools.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some overlap regardless. But I agree that we don't represent just our district. We represent all schools, all community members, all students, et cetera.
And I think because we have that overlap, it would be a mistake to have just one area where one school was in that area and every other area represented multiple schools. I think that would be problematic. So I agree that I would like to see attendance boundaries as at least a focus of the drawing.
And I certainly wasn't suggesting that the demographers thumb their nose at any of the requirements in the law.
I was not implying that, Trustee Pombo. I was simply
And
clarifying.
actually, the way we kind of interpret that is that community of interest question. Is the attendance zone a community that would benefit from being kept in a single trustee area? And the answer would be no. And so when it comes down to do I follow the attendance boundary or the major road, we would not treat the attendance boundary as number 2. We'd go to number 3 and follow the major road. So yes, it's very, very helpful advice.
Are there any other questions or comments before we open it up to the public?
I had one question from a community member that I couldn't answer. So I don't even necessarily know how to ask it. The question was, and this person had gone through and watched all of the videos of all of the comments. And one of the comments made was that there was a question as to whether moving to trustee by area was even beneficial because Asians may in the future be a majority in the district. And this person is he's of Mexican heritage, so he would be Latino. And he said, but in the map, Latinos are a plurality in one of the areas, one of the maps that was presented, which I understand they're done, but he's like, if we did, like, doesn't that benefit me? And aren't I a protected class? The fact that whites are currently a majority or maybe a majority and Asians, aren't I one of the beneficiaries? Isn't my class one of the beneficiaries of the CVRA? And I said, that's a great question. I will ask, and that's what I'm doing.
And the question in many ways comes up all the time. I'm Norwegian, where's my Norwegian seat? There's two pieces to it. The first is the definition of protected class is not minority. It's a very common misperception. If you read the key Supreme Court decisions, they actually do use the term minority a lot back in the older decisions. But protected class is actually defined by a group that had some kind of denial of their right to vote in the past. And so, blacks in the South. That's the very clear experience where they weren't allowed to register, much less vote, and were killed if they tried to. In California, most of the tracing of that history and the concrete actions that tie to it are, we have 100 years ago, even more recent than that, we had a lot of discrimination against Chinese Americans, Asian Americans. So that established them as a protected class. Latinos similarly, there were actual actions taken to prevent them from voting. And it could be as simple as English-only ballots. So that is the trigger. It's not just that you're a minority by numbers. It's that historically there was some effort to deny you your right to vote. That's what makes you a protected class. And it's based on race, ethnicity, or language spoken. So there is no Norwegian, I say this as a Norwegian ancestry, there is no Norwegian class. It is possible to establish a white protected class. There was one case 20 years ago in the South where actually they were refusing to register whites, and so the Department of Justice went in, but it's extremely, extremely rare. So that's why there's no flipping of this where the white group becomes a protected class. On the other piece of the question about, am I better off being in a 27% seat or where I vote for 1 or 14, the district as a whole is 14%, but you get to vote for 5. That's a very interesting dynamic question. There's no right or wrong answer to that question. Historically, that's why a lot of jurisdictions would or would not switch if they didn't have to. Maybe some of them wanted to give a voice to that neighborhood that could be 27%. Others prefer to keep it citywide. The California Voting Rights Act pushes pretty hard into the drawing a 27% seat is better than being 14% district-wide. It's not definitive, it's not a final answer, but pushes pretty hard that way in terms of where you can be sued and where you can't. So it's not to say one answer is right or wrong. There are many, many opinions. I'm sure there will be many, many opinions for years to come as people debate whether this was the right way or not. But a lot of it depends on who gets elected and in terms of do they focus on just their trustee area, or do they continue to, even though they're elected from a trustee area, continue to think of the district as a whole. But it's a valid policy question, which there isn't a right or wrong answer to.
Can I ask a question on slide 2 when you were talking about the election systems? We're currently at large, but there were 2 other options. One was from district or resident districts, and the other was by district. Can you go into a little more detail on the from district versus by district and why the CVRA encourages by district versus from district?
So there are very few remaining jurisdictions, but still a few in California that elect from district, where you have to live in a district, but the election is still citywide. The reason that's disappearing is that is considered at large by the California Voting Rights Act. So that's not protection at all. That actually is what Modesto had when they were sued long ago. So there are still a couple of cities that do that. I think we're down to 3 cities now, and probably a couple of, there are 4 cities now. And then a handful of school districts as well that still do that. But essentially, it ensures geographic representation, but the California Voting Rights Act doesn't approve of it because the majority voting bloc still wins all the seats.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions by the board? I don't have any comment cards specific to this agenda item, but this is a public hearing on the CVRA. So if there are any members of the public who would like to speak now, we can do so at this time, and I'll just read our policy on public comments before we do so. Mr. Rafferty, you did submit a card for regular public comments. Would you like to move that up to this moment here, or? Okay, I'll just read our policy really quickly while you're making your way to the podium. Receiving of public comments. The entire board appreciates hearing from members of the community and public at large. The board shall give members of the public an opportunity to address the board either before or during the board's consideration of each agenda item. Government Code Section 54954.3. At a time so designated on the agenda, members of the public also may bring before the board matters that are not listed on the agenda of a regular meeting. The board may refer such a matter to the superintendent or designee or take it under advisement, but shall not take action at that time. The board may place the matter on the agenda of a subsequent meeting for discussion or action. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes.
I don't know how far I'm going to get in 3 minutes, but I'm very skeptical about whether districting is the right remedy for for racially polarized voting, which does exist here, and vote dilution. We have a majority by population that is Asian American, and we have only one board member. So there are better remedies, different voting systems that actually require you to remain in multi-member districts at large. There's also ranked choice voting, which is really essential in this situation, whether you go to districts or not. But I do want to be clear, everything that is not Mountain House is very different than the city. That all needs to be part of one district. It'll have to go into Mountain House because it's less than 20% of the population. But Mountain House is going to need 4 districts. And we will look at a possible Latino district, and there's some variation in citizenship rates in Hampton, Cordes, and those tend to be more recent immigrants. But other than that, this is a very homogeneous city. Economically, there's only the building blocks will be the neighborhoods. By design, the school attendance districts are coterminous with neighborhoods. The major boundaries are coterminous with the neighborhoods. Those are the building blocks. There's no getting around that. If you try to have 2 people and you try this situation of splitting that you all like so much, you're going to be violating the law. And the law, as of January 1, is very clear. So that's what we're playing with. I don't particularly think you should go to districts. I think there are other approaches we should be discussing. But this crazy system of the safe harbor says that you get a high level of protection if you do something that's not necessarily a good remedy. It's certainly not an adequate remedy. So the other issue that you're going to need to look at here, and again, I've done a number of South Asian districts, all the San Ramon districts, Folsom, Cordova. Usually, the Asian Americans care a lot about education, more than white people, and they vote that way. But when they can't influence their board, and clearly they can't here, when they can't elect in proportion to their numbers, they get frustrated and they don't vote up and down the ballot. And that's the real metric here, is engaging this community. So you'll be hearing more about that, but that's the real problem with our democracy, is that we don't bring these people in and give them influence over the thing they care most about, which is their school board. So I am concerned. You really need to focus on the neighborhoods are the building blocks. You will need to minimize the number of neighborhoods you split in any way whatsoever. So again, I hope in future sessions we can have more of a discussion, but thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, any further comment by the board? We'll move on. Item 5, committee reports. District Advisory Committee, Trustee Boulay.
Thank you. The District Advisory Committee met this evening, and at that meeting, Assistant Superintendent Heather Sharp reviewed the local control accountability plan and shared the infographic of the data dashboard that is available on the website. She showed folks where to find it and how to move around that graphic to read the information. She also talked about the California Voting Rights Act, the process of that, the public hearings, the pre-draft map hearings, the draft map hearing, and the map adoption hearing. And that's the end of my report for the District Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Boulay. Item B, District English Language Advisory Committee. Trustee Clements.
The next DLAC meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 25th at 6:30 here in the DO boardroom.
Item C, Education Committee. Trustee Pombo.
Yes, the Education Committee met last night, and we had a presentation on the new science curriculum, also the new or proposed high school additions to the class list, and we also got a presentation on the California Voter Rights Act. That concludes my report.
Item D, Facilities Committee. The Facilities Committee's next meeting will be on Thursday, February 1st at 6:30 p.m. in the District Office Boardroom. Item E, Policy Committee. Trustee Boulay.
Thank you. We just got a new batch of policies yesterday, so we will be reviewing those. And the goal is to have the first read at the February 21st board meeting.
Thank you. Safety Committee. Trustee Pombo.
Yes, the Safety Committee met earlier today. We had our usual reports from all the campuses on what they're doing safety-wise as far as safety drills and the like. We also had we discussed the upcoming safety plans for all the schools, and also the upcoming drill that's planned for the high school. And once again, we had a California Voter Rights Act presentation.
Thank you. Wellness Committee. The next Wellness Committee meeting will be February 14th at 3:45 p.m. in the Professional Development Center. Item 6, Governing Board Reports. Trustee Boulay.
Thank you. Last Wednesday, I went to the Mountain House Community Services District meeting and provided them with updates regarding the district and upcoming events. I also talked about the California Voting Rights Act and invited the community to come to the meeting tonight for this hearing. On Saturday, I attended a Science Olympiad Invitational, and I was helping the high school team. But I also saw coaches and students from the Wickland team, the Hanson team, and Cuesta team. So it was nice to see. I think this is the first invitational for the year for Science Olympiad, so it's nice to see those folks out there. And I appreciate the coaches and the volunteers who help throughout the district with Science Olympiad, because it's a very labor-intensive, volunteer-intensive activity. So, but it's great for the kids. Yesterday, I attended the girls' 5-6 basketball game at Evelyn Costa. They were playing Altamont, and those girls fought hard until the final bell. And then I went over to the Hanson STEAM Fair and walked around and looked at the science fair boards. But in addition to the science fair boards, there were a lot of hands-on activities for the kids. It was very engaging. The multipurpose room was full. And I did learn from one of the science projects that the 5-second rule is a myth. So if you drop it on the floor, don't eat it. And then earlier this evening, I attended the District Advisory Committee. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Trustee Boulay. Trustee Clements.
Thank you, Madam President. After a well-enjoyed holiday break, I attended the District Advisory Committee meeting earlier today, as previously discussed, and that's the end of my report.
Trustee Pombo.
Yes, in, seems like a long, long time since our last board meeting. On December 14th, Superintendent Nicholas and I attended a reception for the county supervisors in Stockton, got to speak with them about issues in our district a little bit and get their ear while we had the chance. Also on the 14th, I attended the Mountain House High School music program, and I must say I think it's the best one so far. The choir, the symphonic band, all of them just did a fabulous job. I very much enjoyed it. And on yesterday, I attended the aforementioned Education Committee meeting. Earlier today, the Safety Committee meeting. And I just wanted to mention that during Christmas break, I enjoyed time with family and friends, and I hope the rest of the board, district staff, teachers, students, and families did the same. It was a well-deserved break from all of the norm. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Pombo. I also attended the Safety Committee meeting earlier today and appreciate the efforts of our district to maintain safety as a top priority. I attended on December 14th the Mountain House Winter Concert and concur with Trustee Pombo's evaluation that it was amazing and the best one yet. And it was wonderful to see a growing orchestra that included middle school orchestra performances. And then this past Saturday, I attended the San Joaquin County Honor Concert featuring many Mountain House High School students. We dominated orchestra, and it was a wonderful performance from the choir to the band to the orchestra, the guest conductors. What a wonderful experience for our students, and I'm grateful that our county puts on such an event, and I'm very happy to shout out praises to all of our Mountain House High School students who auditioned and were accepted into the county honor choir, band, or orchestra. And that concludes my report.
Madam President, we still have the student trustee.
Oh, my apologies.
Saving the
We're
best
saving
for
the best for
last.
last. Yes, student trustee, my apologies. First night on the job.
It's fine. Thank you so much. And good evening. I hope everyone had an amazing holiday season and New Year. So schools began on January 8th, and we hope that all students have a successful year ahead. I would like to start my updates from clubs at Mountain House High School. So we have a club called the Wellness Forum Club, and their main goal is basically to spread mental health awareness at the high school. And they're raising more awareness for students who are suffering with such mental health issues, and they have split their club into 3 committees. So their activities committee is working on an upcoming Kindness and Wellness Week, which will be held from January 22nd to the 26th. And they have multiple activities such as sticky notes on PE lockers, giving out candy, putting up new posters, interviewing day, and partnering up with counselors. So all students are looking forward to this and kind of getting a almost flashback from elementary school and having it introduced at the high school level. Moving on, Mountain House High School also has a Swee Next Club. And their purpose is to decrease the gender gap in STEM in Mountain House. So they host various workshops and activities for several girls, and they have approximately 20 girls attending currently. And they hold it at the libraries, and they had a total of 100 signups. And NHS students have begun their Emerging Leaders program, and we're excited to see what they come up with. Mustang Buddies has started their Kid Toy Drive, and they have a drop-off box at the front lobby. These toys will be donated to children with disabilities. And recently, DECA competed in their regional competition. We had lots of great feedback. A lot of the students had an amazing time over there. And we had over 90 students qualify for states. And we wish them the best of luck in Anaheim during their states competition. Moving on to ASB updates. ASB has been working hard towards the winter rally. And this time we have a Hunger Games theme. So what we plan is that ASB will be the council, and we're really excited to keep the student body engaged. And we have more games planned, such as archery, and there will be a live recording display. So it's like a unique experience, unique angles, and we're making sure that this time all the students are involved. And sophomore class officers, Agrima, Sarayu, Caitlin, and Bailey, they have been working for the upcoming winter formal dance. And the theme is Cloud 9. And a lot of students are really excited for that, planning out their outfits. They have a pre-dinner planned with Olive Garden, and they're going to be selling cotton candy, pizza, popcorn, and many more desserts. We also have TVLC coming up on January 29th. This is an event hosted for leadership students across many high schools. And this year it's going to be at San Ramon Valley High School. And we are all extremely excited as last year was an amazing time. And we also have the upcoming Academics Award Breakfast coming up. And this event will be held to honor students who have won the department awards, and we will also be having teacher awards. We also have Lipped Up coming up on February 7th. And I would like to recognize the basketball games and the themes that leadership students have put out. So we had successful Neon Out games, and recently last night we had the Frat Boys theme. A lot of students dressed up, and they had a really great time, like discovering the new themes and dressing up. For sporting updates, on December 29th, the girls' basketball game concluded the 2023 sporting season. Starting January, we have had wrestling versus Lathrop, girls' soccer games versus Los Banos, and a home game at Bayer. Boys' basketball games at Clovis North and Grace Davis, and a home game against Johansson. Girls' basketball versus Grace Davis, and a boys' soccer home game versus Bayer, and a game at Los Banos. We also had swim and e-sport interest meetings, and a lot of students are interested in these particular sports, and we can't wait to see what they accomplish in the year. For additional high school updates, the MAP testing for students who couldn't meet the cutoff in August took place on January 9th and 10th, and we're optimistic that they performed well and they were able to show much improvement. We also conducted a lockdown drill to ensure safety procedures were all well practiced. We also have our curriculum fair coming up next week. And I would like to take a moment to recognize the Mountain House High School's music assemblies, so the band, orchestra, choir, and jazz band. They've been doing a wonderful job, and they've been working relentlessly to make sure that they are able to put their best out, not just to the middle schools that they've been visiting for their tours. They had it last Thursday, and they were able to visit Cuesta, Costa, Wickland, and Cortez, and they plan on visiting Lammersville, Hanson, Bethany, and Cortez tomorrow. I was able to talk to all of the ASB presidents from the 8th grade schools, and they were all extremely excited for it, and whoever saw this tour, they were actually really encouraged to join these programs. And for honors, the Central Regional High School honor choirs. So this is the first time that Mountain House High School has had students audition, let alone participate. And 26 Mountain House High School students in 2 Mountain House High School choirs. So 13 students auditioned, which is 50% of the choir, and 11 of them were accepted, which is 42%. And at the All-State Regional Honor Choirs, again, this is also the first time for Mountain House High School, and it is a huge honor. 26 students were in the choirs were there, and 14 auditioned, and 9 of them were accepted. Same thing for junior high and high school all-state choir. 5 were accepted. And for San Joaquin County High School honor choir, 19 students auditioned and 15 students were accepted. And this makes up San Joaquin County's honor choir, and with a total of 102 students, Mountain House High School makes up over 15%. For San Joaquin County High School Honor Orchestra, 36 students were eligible, 25 auditions, and all 25 were accepted. And out of the top 10 chair placements in the orchestra, 6 of them were Mountain House High School, meaning that we have had a large impact in all of these events. And there's more for middle schoolers. So for the middle school honor orchestra, this is the first year that they participated, and all 15 students who auditioned were accepted. And this is 21% of the whole San Joaquin County. And achieving all of this has taken great effort, hard work, vision, and support of these individuals and families. The Mount House community, private music programs, admin, and the K-8 music teachers, and many, many more. The music department aspires to expand to the TK level and on, and I would like to give a very special shout out to Miss Goody Choi and Dr. Daniel Anaranje. Moving on to middle and elementary schools, there have been multiple boys and girls basketball events, including practices and games throughout the month. And schools are getting ready to celebrate their 100th day of school on January 23rd and the 101th day on January 24th with an exciting theme to set these milestones. So Altamont had their STEAM fair on January 17th. Bethany will be conducting math tournaments January 11th, 18th, and 25th. They have, and all middle schools have Kindness Week coming up. So they have like rallies, gram sales, Kindness Week, and all the students are really engaged in participating. CJSF is holding their essay scholarship, and we wish all the students best of luck. Cordes will be having their Winter Wonderland on January 25th. Costa Elementary School, they have multiple basketball games, and their school culture committee is working to bring awareness for Black History Month, and their Valentine grams are also starting soon. I was able to talk to a few middle school students, and they had great feedback for the school. They were really excited to be in such a great school, and we hope that the school continues to grow. For Henson, their STEAM night was last night. Lammersville, their STEAM night is coming up on January 25th, and they have fundraisers to support their PTA. Cuesta has their science fair on January 24th, and their middle school dance January 19th. Wickland has their STEAM fair January 30th, and they have their play auditions for their upcoming middle school play, Willy Wonka, and their winter formal January 19th. And I would like to take a moment to highlight the GATE students who have been working hard for the whole year. So during these classes, they work for art and engineering activities, and they produce like multiple projects, and they're preparing for an upcoming TEDx event on March 21st, and all schools have started their GATE screening this month. And that concludes my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and my apologies again. Won't happen again. Moving on to item 8, consent items for consideration. Actions proposed for consent are consistent with the approved practices of the district and are deemed routine in nature. Trustees receive board agenda background information in advance of scheduled meetings and are prepared to vote with knowledge on the consent items. Item A, governing board meeting minutes for the regular meeting on November 2nd, 2023. Wait, I'm reading the wrong one, sorry. Item A, governing board meeting minutes for the meeting on December 13th, 2023, 7 p.m. Item B, contracts under $50,000. Item C, ratification of budget revisions for November and December 2023 and warrant list for December 2023. Item D, ratification of certificated and classified personnel actions. Item E, updated 2023-2024 fundraisers. Item F, ratification of school-sponsored overnight trips. And item G, acceptance of donation, $3,538 from Lawrence Livermore National Security Laboratory to purchase science lab supplies and equipment for Altamont Elementary School. Are there any items that trustees would like to pull or discuss further?
Move to approve consent items.
Second.
On a motion by trustee Pombo and seconded by trustee Clements, student preferential vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Trustee Boulay, would you please do the honors?
Thank you. I would like to welcome the following new employees to the Lammersville Unified School District. Taylor Burns, 7th and 8th grade mathematics teacher. Nicole Dominguez, personnel technician. Jasmine Domino, registered behavior technician. Mira Ruparelia, special education instructional aide. And Nitika Sharma, special educational instructional aide. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name. But welcome to the Lammersville family.
Thank you, Trustee Boulay. Item 9, District Administrative Reports. Item A, Superintendent's Report.
Yeah, just a couple of items here. We have our first interim report, which is part of the budget cycle. We want to congratulate Assistant Superintendent Grijalva and her team. Once again, we are able to pay our bills this full school year and the 2 out years. It's always good to be in a positive status, and so congratulations to her and her team. Associate Superintendent Harrison is going to begin with the team of district leaders our second year of our vice principal trainings with some existing vice principals and potential future interested vice principals to help build our minor league system for future administrators in the district. The staff did an analysis of the mobility rate in the district. I think it's an interesting number, the outcome. That we have a 14% mobility rate. And so that means any number of kids coming in, any number of kids going out. But in the analysis of the year that they looked at, it was approximately 2.5 to 1. For every 90 kids that went out, 230 kids came in. So the numbers keep growing, even though there's not a ton of houses being built, though that's ending now. They're starting to build houses again. So I think we can see when we get to our enrollment, you're going to hear some interesting numbers. And the last thing is Executive Director Busatil and her team will be starting online open enrollment on February 1st. And Madam President, that's my presentation.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, District Enrollment Report.
Yes, the district enrollment is currently 7,832 students, but I did want to note that the projection, when you drop the senior class and you add the 8th grade class to the high school, that the high school, it is projected that the high school enrollment will be over 2,400 students at the start of the school year. So this board's effort to bring in portables and to add additional permanent classrooms was excellent wisdom on the board's part so that we can absorb all this growth that's going to come our way. That is my enrollment report.
Thank you. Item C, Williams Quarterly Report, April 15th, 2023 through January 15th, 2024.
There are none.
Thank you. And item D, District Maintenance and Operations Report.
Good evening, thanks for having me. No operations reports tonight, just maintenance. So we get our EPIC interns from the high school starting tomorrow. We'll have them Thursdays all day. We'll have them from now to the end of the school year. Tomorrow they're gonna be at CASA doing landscaping, pulling weeds basically, pulling weeds at CASA on the planter beds on the front. If they happen to finish that early, we'll take them over to the high school after lunch. We've been trying to prep the baseball and softball fields, get them ready for spring sports. So if they get done early, we'll take them over there. They could do that work. I'm happy to report that the pool is behaving itself the last couple weeks. So that's good news. Both years are working. Everything's going fine. So that's good news. I know swimming starts in a couple weeks. On Monday the 8th, Keenan was in the district. They're doing their annual hazardous chemical inventory. Thankfully, this year we only had to do the high school, so it only took about 5 hours, which is a good thing. Next year it'll be the whole district, so it'll take a couple days. Areas were inspected at the high school were the science room, chemical storage rooms, art room, theater, custodial closets, kitchen, the equipment and chemical rooms at the pool, then the maintenance shop in the back out by the track. Also on the 8th, I had a meeting with the principal and the athletic director at the high school to talk about their facilities needs. Our next meeting is this coming Monday on the 22nd. Keaton was also here in the district on December 29th on Friday. They were doing their annual property and liability inspections. We inspected all sites, including this building and Costa, which I tried to get out of Costa, but we had to go there anyways. So I spent the whole day with the inspector, about 7 or 8 hours. I just got the report this afternoon, actually, the final report. Just to give you an idea of what they inspect, at Altamont, computer room, custodial closet, electrical room, 5-6 classrooms, NPR, kitchen, science room, playground, track and field. That's pretty typical for all the K-8 schools. And at the high school, you also add in the gyms and the theater and the library. They pretty much go to every single building. So happy to report no immediate or high priority areas were identified on her inspection. And the summary says the school sites inspected appeared to be safe and orderly. While we did find a number of areas which need the district's attention, overall the sites are well maintained. So that's the summary on the report. So good news there. The new classroom buildings at the high school, I received this fancy letter from DSA last month to say that your project has been determined to be a complete submittal for the purpose of plan review. So that's good news. It's in process. That's a good thing. Mountain House portables, the blinds came in for all the 8 portables. Those got installed over the break on Wednesday the 27th. The Mountain House, the pool, and the gates and the sidewalk, you may recall we're putting a gate on the east side of the sidewalk and then a new gate from the pool over to the snack bar at the football stadium. Gates are in, sidewalk is in, handrail is in. It looks fantastic. If you get a chance to go by there next time at the high school, please check it out. It looks really good. There's a little bit amount of dirt. I talked to the grounds guy about getting either leveling out and getting out the extra, but other than that, the only thing we're waiting for are the crash hardware on the gates. It took a while to get those here. They're not here yet, but everything else is done. Costa, we finally got the state elevator inspection on January 3rd. It took a while, months. So that's good. And the D building, the C building is already done. So that's good news. I had to move some box upstairs over the break in the D building, and I'm way out of shape and way too old to be doing that. So I'm happy the elevator is back. The D building, that's good news for me. So we got a friendly little permit, so we're good to go there. The window coverings for the multi at Altamont and Cuesta, Thor and I were talking about this project maybe 2 years? We think it's about 2 years ago this came to the facilities committee to put window coverings at Altamont and then all the windows in Cuesta, the multi. Altamont was a piece of cake. The conduit was already there. It was already stubbed out. They already had a breaker identified. Took about a day and a half, pull wire. That was pretty quick. Cuesta was a whole different story. There's 12 blinds, 6 across the stage, 3 on each side, tons of conduit, ton of wire. There's 3 different zones. You could lower the left side, the right side over the stage separately if you want, or you do all at the same time. Took forever, took over a week to get it wired. It's done. So that project is done. After a couple of years of trial and error, we finally got that done. So thank the Lord on that one. The Cuesta Montessori people and the Bethany Playground. So I brought the little sample a few meetings ago about the pour in place. I have a couple of prices to either do a full replace or some sort of remediation. I gave it to Thor. We're still working on what we're going to do with that if we have the funds for that. So no decision's been made yet on what to do with that project. A couple of meetings ago, I brought up we had all of our surveys, sites surveyed again for trip hazards. I have all those surveys are done. I put them on a spreadsheet, gave it to Thor, broke it down by 1/4 inch, greater than 1/2 inch, greater than 3/4 inch, and the associated numbers with that. So that no decision's been made on what to do with that, but hopefully we'll be able to get some of that work done. The windscreens at the high school, the windscreens on the tennis courts and the windscreens on the pool are almost shredded, some of them. So we have a price. I've been working with Renee, the athletic director, to get a price on that. That's going to the facilities committee, I believe, the next meeting in February. We want to use these facilities money to get those replaced. So just a heads up, it's coming your guys' way. The preschool at Wickland, they approached the principal first. She approached me about, they want to do a little play area next to their, the grass area next to their portable. There are some invasive tree roots, some poplar trees that they've been removing all around Mountain House, some big roots in there. I've been working with CSD to see what maybe their timeline is about removing the trees at the park. If that would, if we can get that done for our project. We're still working on that. I told the preschool people that maybe if they want to pay for the many trees moved, maybe we can go that route, but they're gonna let me know what they want to do. Kitchen remodel at Lammersville. Bernie has some money. She wants to remodel the kitchen at Lammersville. It's pretty dated. If you've been in there anytime soon. So I met with her a couple times. I met with Thor a couple times about this. I'm working on our RFP now. Sort of a tentative timeline is to get the RFP out later this month, bring it to the board February, March range, and award it to contract in March, April, then start the work in June and be done by the time school starts in August. So that'll be a summer project for us. And then for the maintenance department, we have one opening. We have a grounds maintenance position. We interviewed for that on Friday the 15th, December 15th, and we have a candidate going through the hiring process. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions. Other than that, we got nothing going on.
How are things going with the freezers that you guys installed?
The what?
The walk-ins?
Mm-hmm.
How are things going with them?
The walk-in, the freezers?
Yeah.
They're fine. We haven't had any issues. Everything's going good. I haven't heard of any problems.
And the kitchen staff are happy because they needed them, so.
I've heard no complaints. They seem really happy.
Good.
So have you heard anything? No, everything's been going good.
Fantastic.
And, well, I mean, they're a little bit exposed, but we haven't had any issue with break-ins or anything. So it's been really good.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
Item 10, action items. Item A, consider approval of contract with Education Advancement for Mountain House High School Master Schedule Building and Training for school years 2023, 24, 25, and 26. Total cost $72,500. Staff report?
As I alluded to earlier, at a high school of 2,400 kids, the scheduling is a colossal event. They've been doing it on a magnet board. It's about 3 weeks of staff time to put that together, and then there's a lot of machinations beyond that. So this tool will save us not only effort on the magnet work side, but also they'll be able to generate information faster and in the moment and be more accurate. So we strongly recommend this to support the high school's needs.
Questions or comment by the board?
Yes, Madam President. I noticed that every year there is a cost for implementation and training, and I just wondered if it needs to be implemented anew and new training every year, or if that cost was just spread over the 3 years for simplicity's sake.
I believe it was spread, but I believe that the initial training, the lion's share of the training is in that first year, so everybody can learn how to do it. And I would assume there's a piece in the out years for follow-up.
Because the price on the implementation and training is reflected equally between the 3 years, so I'm assuming that's just for
Accounting's sake.
And after the initial 3 years, assuming we continue with this, will the price go down annually?
I do not have an answer for that, but we can certainly check with the company. So what you're saying is in the 26-27 school year, if we re-up them, that there's a long-term relationship and we want to see that reflected in the price.
Well, more that as well as not needing the same intensity of implementation and training after the first 3 years.
Yes, I understand. We'll check.
If there are no further comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the contract with Education Advance for Mountain House High School Master Schedule Building and Training for school years 2023 to 2024, 2024 to 2025, and 2025 to 2026. Total cost $72,500.
Second.
Based upon a motion by trustee Boulay and seconded by trustee Pombo, student trustee preferential vote.
Aye.
Any additional comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry. Any opposed? The motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Item B, consider approval of the 2024-2025 budget development calendar. Staff report?
Yes, this is an annual endeavor, and we recommend approval.
Move to approve the 2024-2025 budget development calendar.
Second.
I just had one question. Is there any update on the request that the board made to implement the calendar on the out year rather than doing it 2 years at a time every other year?
Yeah, Associate Superintendent Harrison and I have discussed this matter, and it will be brought up in in coming discussions with the Teachers Association. Once we resolve that, an MOU and/or a negotiation will go forward, and we should be able to apply that relatively simply
So
with agreement.
Point of clarification, that question will be
Relates to
regarding
item
the academic calendar, not the budget calendar, correct?
The instructional calendar, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I will withdraw the question, and
The answer remains the same on the other calendar, but yes.
So we have a motion and.
Yes, so we have a motion by trustee Clements and it is seconded by trustee Pombo. Any further additional discussion or comment?
any further misplaced questions?
Seeing none, student trustee preferential vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Item C, consider approval of architectural agreement with Nichols, Melberg, and Rossetto for the design and construction administration of 2 K-8 elementary schools. Staff report?
Yes, there is a significant planned development north of the Byron Highway. We have been in negotiations with developers, the original developer and now his successor developer. We have an agreement that we're just nearing on the funding side. With that said, there are 2 schools, 3 schools total, but 2 schools in the next short period of time, meaning within this decade. Schools in J and K. This is the identified architect for those 2 schools' designs. The first one is intended to open in 2026 and the second one in 2029.
Move to approve architectural agreement with Nichols, Melberg, and Rossetto for the design and construction administration of 2 K-8 elementary schools.
Second.
Based upon a motion by trustee Pombo and a second by trustee Boulay, any additional discussion or comment before we vote? Seeing none, student trustee preferential vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Item D, consider approval of the 2024-25 and 2025-2026 LUSD instructional calendars. Staff report?
Yes, based on past direction from the board, we went out and worked with the union to do a 2-year calendar. I can report with pride that Associate Superintendent Harrison and I have discussed doing the out-year plan, which is that we'll have a 2-year calendar, and each calendar year that rolls over, we will add the additional year to make it easier for the community.
Thank you for that clarification.
I would move to approve the 2024, 2025, and 2025, 2026 LUSD instructional calendars with the clarification for the community that the specific calendars in the packet are LUSD calendar updated 2025, 2026, and LUSD calendar 2024, 2025 final. That third one is not the right calendar.
Yes, there was a typo, so that was corrected.
Second.
Based upon a motion by trustee Clements and seconded by trustee Pombo, student trustee preferential vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 nay, or no nays and 1 absent. Excuse me. Item E, consider approval of 2023-2024 seniority list for California School Employees Association, chapter number 873. Staff report?
Yes, we do this annually, but it basically defines the hiring order of all CSEA staff. So in case of employee function, we would know who came in first and who came in last. It's part of the process.
Move to approve the 2023-2024 seniority list for the California School Employees Association, Chapter 873.
Second.
Yeah, Clements got him by a second. Okay. Based upon a motion by trustee Boulay and seconded by trustee Clements, trustee preferential vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Moving on to item F, consider approval of course outlines at Mountain House High School. Staff report?
Yes, annually we go through our course offerings at the high school. As we grow, classes have to grow, new classes are invented, new direction from the state come. This is this year's tranche, and it's been reviewed by staff and gone through a formal process, and we recommend these course outlines to be approved.
Move to approve course outlines at Mountain House High School.
Second. And I would like to thank everyone for making sure that we have these available during the time that the students are selecting courses, because the course selection period is still open. So I think this is great timing. Thank you.
Based upon a motion by trustee Pombo and seconded by trustee Boulay, student trustee preferential vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. Moving on to item 12, calendar. Item A, Thursday, January 25th, 2024, the District English Learner Advisory Committee meeting will be at 6:30 p.m. Item B, Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, the District Parent Advisory Committee meeting will be at 6:30 p.m. in the District Office Boardroom. Item C, Thursday, February 1st, 2024, the Facilities Committee meeting will meet at 6:30 p.m. in the District Office Boardroom. Item D, Wednesday, February 7th, 2024, is the next regular Governing Board meeting, 7 p.m. in the District Office Boardroom. And item E, Wednesday, February 14th, 2024, the Wellness Committee meeting at 3:45 p.m. in the Professional Development Center. Item 12, adjourn to closed session. In a few minutes, we will adjourn to closed session where we will be discussing the following. Item A, public employee discipline dismissal release complaint, Government Code Section 54957. Item B, conference with real property negotiators, Government Code Section 54956.8. Number 1, Property Mountain House, California. Agency negotiator, Superintendent Nicholas. Negotiating parties, Mountain House developers, Camillos, Trimark, Shea Homes. Under negotiations, price, terms, payment, or both. Item C, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9. Significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Section 54956.9, 1 case. And item D, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Section 54956.9 of the Government Code, 1 case, letter from attorney Scott Rafferty. And Mr. Rafferty has, you've provided a comment card for item D, so you may come to the podium.
Just a point of clarification on the calendar. Is there, or am I mistaken, is there not a special board meeting scheduled for January 29th that is not on our calendar?
Yeah, we had to finish that hearing process.
Thank you.
Mr. Rafferty.
So this is not a very typical case for me. Usually when I'm involved with the school district, it costs $250,000 to run for office. There's a identifiable neighborhood that is not just minority, but it's also economically underprivileged and treated horribly by a board and that has never had representation on. So I was hoping this would be pretty easy. I'm, as I said, skeptical about whether it's the right approach. You're a relatively between the difference between Mountain House and not Mountain House. Mountain House is very homogeneous. We'll look at a Latino concentration, but there are no poor neighborhoods. And you're really going to have to hew to the defined neighborhoods. I mean, that's the law. And the idea of people getting multiple representatives on the board, that's the opposite of the law. So I'm much more pessimistic about how this was going to proceed. I don't know that if we're going to have a dispute, then, you know, we shouldn't be extending things. We should get to court sooner rather than later. It shouldn't be this way. I'm also concerned that I think you have to have an outreach to the Asian community, because like many places, Asian Americans tend not to want to testify in public places, and they're very concerned about their personal situations. It's not because of you. It's just something I've seen across the state. We have to get some authentic input from them. Again, if you're going in this direction, you're going to have to follow the law, and I want to be a willing partner, but we have to do what's right here and do something that, you know, the metric is, the cases that I've worked on, there was a study in the University of Chicago this summer, and it showed 25-point increases in the Asian American turnout where there's been a CVRA case in California. It's a small sample set, but this is important. It's important to get it right. And because you're the first case under the new law, you're a precedent, and because of what I do, precedent's important. So I hope we find a way to work together, but it's going to need to have some more flexibility and a greater opportunity to present the case on behalf of the Asian American community, and more engagement on your part, maybe open it up to hearings, virtual hearings, because otherwise I just think we're, you know, headed for unnecessary conflict. But thank you for your time, and I hope we can work something out. I'll certainly be talking to your attorneys, and I'm glad you have a new demographer, but it's pretty well defined, the neighborhoods and what choices you have. So thank you.
For your comment, I will now entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
On a motion by trustee Boulay and seconded by trustee Clements, trustee preferential vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes with 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent. We are now adjourned to closed session.